bit, and now.
Good afternoon. We're just letting a few people filter in, but thank you all for being here today. I'm gonna give them one more minute. All right. It's great to see all of you here today for CWCB's Climate and Water Workshop. Whether you've traveled from near or far, we appreciate you joining us to engage in these really critical discussions on Colorado's climate and water future. I'm Kat Weismiller, and I'm the Section Chief for Water Supply Planning at the Colorado Water Conservation Board, or CWCB as we call it. And on behalf of CWCB and our sister agencies from across the state, all of whom are represented out there in the hallway, and our colleagues at CSU and Linker who helped us plan this event, I want to extend a warm welcome and thank you for being here. Today is really about adaptation and thinking ahead. We've organized these workshops with the support of several state agencies, as I mentioned, but it's also a special opportunity to connect with state and local experts, decision makers, and peers to discuss solutions for building resilience and to learn about the resources available to you and your organizations as you prepare. These events are also really useful to CWCB because they help us advance some of the actions in the Colorado Water Plan, one of which calls for hosting workshops on climate vulnerability, adaptation, and resilience. So who's in the room today? We're joined by a really diverse group of water professionals, conservation groups, local governments, and I'm going to ask you quickly to raise your hand if you're here from a watershed or conservation group. Awesome. And water providers and utilities. Oh, great, great. And local and county governments. Awesome, this is great. And then state agencies and public institutions. Nice showing, look at that. And then community and resilience organizations. Fantastic. Well, I encourage you all to be fully present and engaged in today's conversations and discussions. It's an opportunity to connect and share ideas and learn about the resources and tools available to you. Introduce yourself to someone, ask questions, think about how today's conversations can help you approach your climate and water resilience. And with that in mind, we have a very full afternoon, so I'm going to turn it over to Emily Adrid to get us started.
Thank you, Kat. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Emily Adrid, and I'm the Water Planning and Climate Impact Specialist at the Colorado Water Conservation Board. I just want to, again, say thank you all for being here. I know that some traveled far to be here today, so we appreciate your attendance. We also appreciate your interest in this topic that's brought us here together today, climate and water. I think we can all agree that water is incredibly important for our way of life here in Colorado. It supports our towns, cities, and industries. It breathes life into our forests and natural landscapes. And it sustains agriculture economically and culturally. So we know that climate change is altering our relationship with water and the way we try to use and manage it. Because we know that temperatures have risen and will continue to rise. And we will experience more climate hazards in our state, like wildfires and droughts. We face complex challenges ahead. So today we will be grappling with these issues and working together to strategize on how we might approach these climate challenges, both in the short and long term. So I want to start out with, or I want to highlight the impetus for putting on these workshops. Kat mentioned it briefly, but it starts with the Colorado Water Plan, which outlines 50 actions that CWCB will take over the course of the next 8 years now, 10 when it was released, to support the advancement of a more water resilient future in our state. So of the 50 actions, action 4.5 states that CWCB will convene these 2 workshops Today we're in Pueblo, our next workshop will be in Clifton, Colorado, in the Grand Junction area. And so to summarize the text on the slide, action 4.5 is really about trying to better understand the climate impacts that communities face. And we know that communities face uneven impacts to climate change. And so we are working with our state agency partners because we know that it's important to identify these communities and compile our resources together. It states that CWCB will facilitate a tabletop exercise, which we'll get to later, to better understand the ways in which communities experience climate impacts unevenly. And finally, it states that the feedback and discussions from this workshop will help inform a forthcoming climate impacts report that our agency and our partners at CSU and Liquor are working on. So I will talk about this report later on this afternoon, but these are kind of the main elements that set us up nicely for our agenda this afternoon. So yes, this is the agenda. First, we're going to hear from multiple state agencies about their climate and or water related resources, tools, and funding opportunities. This will be kind of a lightning round series of presentations. So if they cover something briefly that you'd like to know more about, we have booths out in the foyer area where you can get more information and find them in the break or at the end of the day to ask more questions. After a short break, we will get into our exercise / simulation. And again, like I mentioned, the ideas and discussions that come out of the activity today will inform our climate impacts report. So we are going to start with our presentations. We have 2 rounds of presentations. We're going to start first with the Colorado Department of Agriculture, then with the Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Management, then the Colorado Department of Public Health and the Environment. In our second round of we'll have a Q&A for them. And then in our second round, we will hear from the Department of Local Affairs, the Colorado Energy Office, Colorado Parks and Wildlife, and finally us, the Colorado Water Conservation Board. And then we'll have a round of Q&A for those agencies as well. So without further ado, I will pass it off to Kristen from CDA.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for having us. We're really happy to be here and talk to everyone in Pueblo and from beyond. So happy to kick this off. My name is Kristen Boyson. I work for the Colorado Department of Agriculture, and I run our Agricultural Climate and Drought Resilience Office. I'm joined by Rosie Scobrin, who's in the room, and she also works for the Drought and Climate Resilience Office, and we're seated within our Conservation Services Division. And we love acronyms, of course. So AGCO is our Agricultural Drought and Climate Resilience Office. We're seated within the Conservation Services Division at CDA. And I like to, being a climate person, I like to say everything is climate change, everything is resilience. So I'm very slowly collecting all of the conservation services programs. Right now, though, we're focused on soil health, energy, and climate resilience within agriculture. Like Emily said, this is going to be a lightning round of our programs. And we're more than happy to talk more about these programs or other things that CDA does during the break. Starting with our soil health program, which started about 5 years ago, we enroll conservation districts, conservation districts and other local agricultural nonprofits to work with producers on the ground to implement new soil health practices on their fields. Right now we have almost 400. Yep, almost 400 people enrolled, and we're gonna get like 50 more this spring, doing things like cover cropping and reducing their tillage and changing their nutrient management and adding compost to improve their soil health. And working with us, farmers and rangers, to get technical assistance and some financial assistance to do these new practices. Soil health, for those of you who don't know, is very important, not only for farm yield, but also for water quality. We love the soil water nexus and work closely with CWCB on things in their water plan around soil and water. A brand new program we have, so I hope you all can go talk to your farmer and rancher friends or any farmers and ranchers in the room. Starting next year, 2026, there's a new state tax credit for farmers and ranchers who are doing stewardship practices on their land. This includes soil practices similar to our soil health program, but it expands beyond that into irrigation, water management, pollinator habitat, and other things to improve the soil, water, and habitat of farms and ranches. So brand new program, we're like setting it up right now, so we'd love to talk to you more about it. Next, I'll talk about our energy programs. Our flagship energy program that's been going on for almost 2 decades is Acre 3, another acronym, stands for Advancing Colorado's Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency. And this is a matching grant for farmers and ranchers who want to do energy efficiency or renewable energy projects. Energy is a big cost driver of farms and ranches. It can make up to 50% of people's operating costs. So this is a great way to make sure not only are farms reducing their emissions, but also increasing their economic resilience, and being able to make more money and spend less money on their utility bill. Oh no. REAP is a United States Department of Agriculture grant. That's pretty similar to our Acre 3 program, and we can provide technical assistance to farmers and ranchers who are interested in that federal program. It's a pretty similar grant, like I said, but their process is way worse, so we can help you figure out and navigate the federal process. And oftentimes farmers will get some of their grant funded by the state and the rest funded by the federal government. We also, in the last 3 years, have started an agrivoltaics grant program. Do you know what agrivoltaics is? Couple people. Essentially, it's when you, on the same parcel of land, put solar development and continue to farm or ranch. So dual use of the same parcel of land. It doesn't work in every scenario, but we at CDA, who both want to see our transition to renewable energy be successful and want to keep productive farmland farming, I think this is a good way to get more things out of the same piece of land. We don't want to see vast conversion of ag land and solar arrays, but we do think that agriculture is a good way to use the land underneath solar panels. So we have a small grant that's actually open right now, if you're interested, to help people do demonstration projects or research on agrivoltaics operations. And finally, very briefly, kind of in our climate and drought space, we have another brand new grant program that I hope some of our local organizations and municipalities in the room will be interested in. Is a climate resilience grant. This will be small grants to farmers and ranchers who have experienced or are at risk of experiencing a climate disaster. So again, targeted at farming and ranching, but the grant's pretty broad. So again, brand new. Rosie and I can tell you all the details. And that's all about all. How do I go on time? Not too bad.
Yeah, that's good.
Thanks, all.
Okay, Jesse, up next.
Thank you for having me. I'm Emily Josselmeyer. I'm with the Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Management. And I'm going to talk a little bit about our mitigation section. So our office is responsible for preparing, responding, recovering, and mitigating disasters across the state of Colorado. So we will work with locals and state agencies to prepare for all these natural hazards that impact Colorado. So one section of the mitigation section is the planning side, and we help facilitate and coordinate hazard mitigation plans. These are required by statute to receive some of the disaster and mitigation funding through FEMA, because we are the main program managers for all the FEMA disaster and non-disaster grants. So we have a state hazard mitigation plan, and we also have a local hazard mitigation plan. And about 90% of Coloradans are covered by either the state or local plan. There's about 3 counties that don't have these plans, so they aren't covered. But majority of the Colorado is covered by a hazard mitigation plan. These are a 5-year cycle, and every 2.5 years, these plans are starting to be updated. And basically, the hazard mitigation plan is a risk assessment of all the hazards to a local community that they identify as high, medium, or low risk, and then identifies how the community is affected by these hazards, vulnerable populations, climate change, all that good stuff. And then they come up with a mitigation strategy and mitigation actions to implement through that 5-year cycle. Here is the state hazard mitigation plan. Hazards that we've identified for the state at a high, medium, or low level. So locals typically have some combination of these hazards in their plan that they've also identified as a risk to their communities. In the state plan, we also talk a little bit about climate change, but some agencies are a little more detailed in that area. So next year, we are going to start our state hazard mitigation update. So we invite all of you to be participants, give us that great information that you know. Or if you are part of local community, reach out to community development or your emergency manager, and they are usually in charge of these plans. And you can get involved and make sure that your risks or your mitigation actions are being included as well. Second part of mitigation is mitigation projects. So here's a dashboard that we've created of all the mitigation projects that we've funded throughout the last 10 years or so. There is a live version out on our booth, but mainly we focus on wildfire, flood, and drought projects, and then other planning related activities. So you can see that we're pretty active along the Front Range, but we need to spread our wings a little bit towards those east and west parts of the state. So if you all can help us with that, we would love to help you fund your mitigation projects in those areas. And here's just a list of project eligibility, pretty wide range. As long as you're mitigating against a natural hazard, our FEMA funds can help fund that project. See here. We could do acquisitions, landslides, and we can help you acquire properties that are in hazard areas, soil stabilization, flood, or stream restoration. The only thing we really can't touch that's water related is water quality because those funds are covered through other grants. But since we also work a lot with state agencies, if you come to us with a project and we can't fund it, we can look through our state hazard mitigation plan and say, hey, CWCB has a grant or CRO has a grant that can help you. So we can also be kind of those funding guys as well. This is just part 2 of what we can help fund. And that's all I have. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. When we have a chance.
CPG next.
Great, thanks everyone. My name is Ronnie Kumar and I'm with Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment with the Office of Environmental Justice, and I'm the GIS or Geospatial Data Analyst for that office.
Hi everyone, my name is Tori Bloom and I work for the Climate and Health Team in the Healthy Communities Unit at CDPHE.
So for those who aren't familiar with our state agency, we are a state agency that works on both public health and environmental topics. So that is a pretty wide breadth of topics to cover, and we're only a small portion of that representation today. Our wonderful water quality control division colleagues are out and they have their table there, so we don't have a slide for them today, but just know that our water division is here. Like we said, we have the environmental divisions as well as the public health side. So, you know, we don't cover something that you're interested in today. We are more than happy to help connect you to the right people from our state agency. And so we're just going to share a few of the climate resources that we touch on, and I'll pass it to Tori to talk about her office.
Sorry, I'm a little short. Okay, so our Climate and Health Team is in the Healthy Communities Unit and the Prevention Services Division at CDPG. We partner with folks across sectors at the state, local, and community level to help identify and address climate-related health impacts and build community resilience to those health impacts. Everything we do is in the context of the social determinants of health and ensuring that everyone, regardless of who they are or where they are, live in a healthy community. Some of the topic areas that we work within, there's quite a few, but they include extreme heat, housing resilience, park planning, and environmental health, just to name a few. And as most of you probably know, these all either directly or indirectly impact water resilience in Colorado. And so with our park planning work, we'll try to elevate riparian work and wetland considerations, or in housing resilience, we'll try to elevate water conservation work as well. Our team also offers technical assistance at no cost, and this can look like a number of things, and it really just depends on your needs and your community needs. But that could include data and resource sharing, help with identifying funding and applying for funding, program and policy planning and implementation, but we are available to talk about specific needs. So please feel free to reach out. This is my contact information. Would love to talk more about our work.
And then, just really quickly want to plug our air pollution control division. They have climate change programs. So while not directly water related, that division is available, and we can connect you to the right people there on all the different climate programs they have as well. And lastly, for the Office of Environmental Justice, we're part of the administrative division at CDPHE. We have a lot of opportunities for collaboration, including our grants program. And then something that might be of interest, especially for, utilities or folks who working on local projects, is something called the supplemental environmental projects. And this is a way that when industrial polluters receive a fine from CDPHE, they can actually fund a community project rather than paying that fine directly. So we have what we call the STEPS library, where if you want to submit an idea, we offer that up to where facilities who are have a fine can actually work directly with the community partner to spend that money back in the community. And then we also have our two mapping tools we run out of our office, which are the disproportionately impacted community map, which are tied to the statutory definition for Colorado of DI communities. And then our environmental health data tool, which allows you to print reports and get all the environmental health data that we have at the state, called Colorado EnviroScreen. And so I'll be available to talk about or demonstrate either of those two tools and just offer, any questions you have about the Office of Environmental Justice and our programs. So that's what we have, and please visit our water quality control division folks too.
Awesome, thank you. Maybe off stage or on stage and have Kristen and Emily come up. Does anybody have any questions for these agencies? Now's the time.
Hi, I am a county commissioner from Summit County, and I'm really, one of my big concerns for my community is water quality. And I want to know, where's the money for monitoring? Who's the right agency to determine this?
I think there's two, and I'm one of them. We have a water quality monitoring program within CDA that does monitoring specifically. We don't have like a grant program or anything, but I can put you in touch with that program. And then I think CDPHE, Public Health and the Environment, is that.
I'll come see you. Yeah. We got a whole presentation. Show me the money.
And I will just plug, in tandem with our water quality division, that we have a mobile home water quality program that's out of the Office of Environmental Justice. So we can talk about that as well. So that's a joint effort.
Very excited.
Yes, come visit our tools.
I'll come by.
Awesome, anyone else?
It's just in terms of a lot of things happening on the federal level with climate change. Speak a little bit to how that might be affecting any of the agencies and programs you guys are talking about today. And
Yes, it is affecting a lot of disaster and non-disaster grants. We're not allowed to say the word climate change anymore. We can wordsmith kind of around what it is, but also the way we're kind of approaching it is there's enough risk today to justify applying for our programs. So without speaking with future conditions or relating to climate change, we can just say population's increasing, infrastructure is aging, those kind of things, and kind of tie it in that way is what we're approaching it.
And I'll just say the programs that I talked about today are all state funded, so they are still exist and will move forward. But certainly we're capacity constrained, just given that there's a bunch of our federal partners that are like, it's still kind of unknown, so new territory.
You said for your hazard mitigation programs, those are FEMA funded,
Yes, they are.
so that would probably be.
Yeah, I don't know exactly how they'll be impacted, but right now, yeah, they're saying that we have to align with the executive orders and not saying those types of activities.
And then similarly to Department of Agriculture, we are a state-funded office, but broadly at CDC, there's a lot of cuts happening and even the CDC grants that are no longer funded. And I think one of the big challenges we'll have moving forward is data availability. A lot of the data sets that we rely on our federal partners, it's questionable if they'll be maintained or they're already offline. So we'll see. I think that will add a lot of work for the state to develop those.
All right, thank you guys so much.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Marguerite Harden. I'm with the Colorado Resiliency Office, and we are based within the Department of Local Affairs. Our office was established in 2013 in response to the 2012-2013 flooding and wildfires. It was really devastating to our state, specifically the North Front Range. We water safer and more systems. So how do we do that? For one, we have the Colorado Resiliency Group, which all over
State Department presentations. We really really collaborate across state agencies to ensure that there's efficiency gain. So really all of the state partners you see presenting today are part of our resiliency working group. So raise your hand if you're in a state agency and part of that Colorado resiliency working group. Kristen, you're and we're also guided by your plans. So in 2015, we were the first state to have a Colorado resiliency framework that we as a Colorado Resiliency Office steward, but is really a cross-state agency plan for the whole state of Colorado to be supporting and implementing. And this year is an update to that plan. So we have the 2015 plan, the 2020 plan, and now the 2025 plan that will be updated. And this is really a call for all of you to participate in that process. We'll be doing a lot of outreach, work with subject matter experts, and we're going to continue to be guided by the North Stars that you see here. So a lot of what has been developed in previous frameworks will continue to be utilized in this framework, but we're really going to be focusing on a lot of the more future-oriented shocks and stressors that we see coming down the pipe. So this image in the bottom corner is something that's going to be carried over into our next framework. We really see resilience and our work in a very holistic sense, where all of these six sectors are interlocking and have a lot of co-benefits when we can work on projects that really speak to more than just one sector. And we see climate change as that force multiplier of impacts on those sectors that's going to be exacerbating some of those shocks and stressors in our communities. And so for the next 5-year update, the Colorado Resiliency Working Group has defined some of these key areas of impact that we're going to be focusing in on. I'm not going to read each of them, but we're thinking about some of our key vulnerabilities. We're thinking about focusing on critical infrastructure across the state and how we can bolster those resources across the state. Things like economic transitions, and this last bullet, of course, the funding cliff that relates to that question that was just asked about
in the future, what's going to happen, and how can we be more resilient to things like federal funding shifts. So get involved, stay tuned. We don't have any specific dates right now, but my colleague Shale Sabo, who is outside at our table, is going to be leading this process along with me and the rest of our team. And we have a sign-up sheet out there if you want to be involved. Another really timely resource that we just released is this guidance for local government climate adaptation. So we have a number of funds. I didn't focus this presentation on our specific funds, but really more around these two timely opportunities that we have. But one of those funds is the Climate Resilience Challenge, which was a set aside of our Energy and Mineral Impact Assistance Fund, or EIAF, which anyone with a local government background probably knows a lot about that fund. It comes from severance tax and is about $30 million a year. And we fund local governments for a lot of their infrastructure needs and other needs. And so we funded these Climate Resilience Challenge programs and grants to local governments, municipalities and counties. But we found that while people are really well versed in what climate mitigation is, it's like solar and all the renewable energies, not everyone is sure what to do when it comes to climate adaptation. And so we have broken down the climate adaptation actions into these 5 sectors. We have 28 different actions that local governments can be doing. They're really Colorado tailored and meant to meet each community where they are, whether they're rural or urban, whether they're far into their climate adaptation journey or just starting out. So we have a handout outside that you can link right to these resources, and I'd love your feedback and engagement in them. But we have a number of other tools, which you're welcome to visit our website, and we really help communities plan before a disaster, after a disaster, and recovery, and long-term thinking after a disaster. So, again, there's a lot more funds and specifics that I can get into, but with just a short amount of time, I just want to highlight some of those programs and come talk to me and Shale out at our table. Thank you so much.
We have Keith with the Colorado next.
I have never done speed dating, but I imagine this is what it feels like. And I'm gonna make sure, which button do I push, the top one? The
Right arrow.
right arrow. There we go. All right, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Keith Breitbach. I am a communication and engagement specialist with the Colorado Energy Office, and I work specifically with the local government team. There's my name, I'll give you my contact information at the end also. The Colorado Energy Office develops programs and promotes energy policies to achieve net zero greenhouse gas emissions in Colorado by 2050, a rather ambitious goal, but we're definitely making progress, and we are improving air quality and saving Coloradans money. CEO provides technical assistance, incentives, and energy efficiency services to help residences, businesses, and public institutions take part in not just just an equitable clean energy transition. The bottom line is we are working towards a more sustainable and equitable Colorado for everyone. And I want to share that I'm not an expert. I've been with the Colorado Energy Office for a couple of months, and I can connect you to the experts. And I just want to share, I've just had some conversations in the initial part of joining this today with people, and I'm guessing everybody in this room is pretty passionate, dedicated, professional, and knowledgeable. And that's what's happening at the Colorado Energy Office. In my first couple of months working there, my colleagues, I've just been amazed and blown away by their passion and their technical knowledge and their expertise. And I just want to share, you're going to get a lot of information here today if you're not part of this, one of these state agencies. And reach out. The door is wide open. There are so many resources available, grants, technical assistance. They'll support you on applications, projects big and small, communities big and small. This is what I've experienced thus far in my first couple of months at the Colorado Energy Office. The door is wide open. The opportunities are wide open. If it feels intimidating, reach out. We'll connect you to the right people, and there are people ready, willing, and able to walk you through these processes. And whether that's, I talk about big projects, small projects. Maybe you want to get electric vehicle charging stations in your community, we can do that. If you want to address your infrastructure needs, solar panels on City Hall, that sort of thing, that could be, there are people ready, willing, and able to do that also. Weatherization for your homes and your communities, experts, just mind-blowing what they're able to do and what they're, the tools that are available to you and your community. One of the, there you go. Electrical vehicles, charging stations, microgrids, codes, policy, implementing these projects. It's all available at the Colorado Energy Office. One of the biggies that's coming up, I could give you a laundry list of bullet points in all of these programs. Oh, thank you. We could, but I just encourage you, I'll give you the contact information, reach out if there's anything you want to follow up, look at the website. If you have any questions at all, I can connect you to the right sources. What's happening in June, this summer, we have a launch date for the CPRG, which is the Climate Pollution Reduction Grant. That is going to be $60 million available across the state of Colorado for policy implementation and project implementation. And we're working right now on all the guidance, and we're going to be rolling that out. And I really encourage you, if not you personally, go back to your agency, your community, and take a close look at this, because it's a tremendous amount of resources available. What I call the, how do I remember this? It's like BLT, W. So buildings, land use, and what did I just say? BLT, transportation and waste management. So anything from, if you have a policy that you've been thinking about updating or to implement, there's money that's going to be available for that. If you have a project that you've been wanting to get done for a long time, there will be resources and grant money available for that. We have project managers, regional coordinators who will be working with local communities and assisting through the application process and helping you to get access to that kind of grant money. So keep an eye out for that. Log on to the website, and I encourage you to get connected on that program. So there you have, I know I should be looking over at this, right? Policy, project funding, building decarbonization, land use, transportation, and waste solutions. So please take my email address down. Feel free to contact me. I can get you connected to the experts. All right, thank you so much.
Next, we have Colorado Parks and Wildlife, Angela.
I'm Angela Bogue with Colorado Parks and Wildlife. So a couple of colleagues unfortunately couldn't be here today due to numerous illnesses. I myself have one, but I'm on the mend. But hopefully I can help answer some of your questions. So hopefully you're all familiar with Colorado Parks and Wildlife. If you've ever seen some wildlife in our state or visited a state park, we play a role in managing both of those incredible resources. So our mission is to perpetuate wildlife resources in the state to provide a quality state parks system, and provide sustainable outdoor recreation opportunities for current and future generations here in Colorado. So you can really think of us as your wildlife and parks people. So we have a lot of work going on. This just summarizes some of it. We have 43 state parks in our state, over 350 state wildlife areas. We manage over 900 species here in Colorado. And so we're a big agency. We do a lot. We do everything from issuing hunting and fishing licenses to providing grant funding for trail programs and land conservation, so conservation easements as well, along with lots of other things. When it comes to climate change, what's very exciting is I'm the first sort of climate position the agency has had. So I've been on the job for about 1.5 years, and we're really leaning in to try to think and plan more proactively around climate, because obviously it has a fundamental impact on our ecosystems, on our wildlife, and people here in Colorado. And so maybe it was mentioned earlier, but the governor's office put out the Colorado Climate Preparedness Roadmap a couple of years ago now. So that's the governor's office directives around sort of climate adaptation and resilience. And it has some pretty specific directives in there for Colorado parks and wildlife that I'll speak to a little bit. We also recently updated our statewide comprehensive outdoor recreation plan. So if you think about rec management at a more local level, this is a great document just to see current trends and statewide priorities. And then right now, we're currently updating our state wildlife action plan, which is we do every 10 years. It basically lists those species that we're most concerned about from a conservation perspective, as well as conservation actions. And we're integrating climate considerations into those conservation actions. I wanted to talk a little bit about what I think about on a daily basis in my job, because it might sort of help stir up some of your own thinking around recreation and wildlife if you're managing it at a more local level. So an awesome report came out last year from the Colorado Climate Center, Climate Change in Colorado. This is what you should look to if you need some climate projections, some stats for the state. But, it suggests we're going to see a lot more heat waves. That's a big concern for wildlife, but then also for recreation opportunities, right? People get out less when it's over a certain temperature. That extreme heat is probably going to drive even more people up into our mountains to some of our higher elevation parks and natural areas, potentially increasing wildlife conflicts as well. So that's something we're thinking a lot about. Contracting winter seasons. Here in the Rockies, we're actually going to do a lot better than some other areas of the country. In a couple decades, we might lose a couple weeks of our ski season, but other parts of the country might lose a couple months, right? Like the Pacific area, coastal areas, for example. So what's that going to do to winter recreation? And that's something our agency's starting to think about too. Decreasing snowpack, lower water flows. Obviously, this is an issue for fish and for fishing, but then also other water-based recreation, right? Like rafting and all those other awesome, river activities we have here. And wildfire risk too, something we've already mentioned earlier today, but how does that interact with recreation? Again, thinking about campfires and fire bans and how the way we camp, the way we recreate may have to change as wildfire risk continues to increase. So, what does that mean for us as an agency and maybe for you working at more of a local level? So we are planning to do a climate vulnerability assessment of all of our state parks. I'm happy to have conversations with folks who are contemplating something similar for more local properties. And then we're weaving climate change into things like our state wildlife action plan. We also, this spring, will be putting out what's called the Colorado Outdoor Strategy. So there's really a push to try and balance conservation, wildlife conservation, and recreation in Colorado. And this visioning framework will sort of provide that overall vision, but it's ideally going to be implemented at that local level. So we have something called the Regional Partnership Initiative. For folks who are familiar with the water basin roundtables, I like to think of this as the same model, but for wildlife and recreation. So we're trying to get groups established at that local level who are working on the local planning around wildlife and rec, have them, informing those local planning decisions. So we have established a number of these around the state. We have funding available for them. Please come talk to me if you are not connected to your local regional partnership, or want to start one. We do have portions of the state where we don't have them currently. We have a lot of funding opportunities. Again, come talk to me depending on what you need. Everything from funding to support conservation easements, land acquisitions, to grants around outdoor equity and getting more people outside. So lots to talk about. Happy to answer your questions in the break as well. And again, my name is Angela, but we'll have information at our table. So thanks.
I will wrap up the state agency presentations with CWCB's funding opportunities and resources. So CWCB has many grants and loan programs, but I'm only going to highlight these three today: the water plan grants, water supply reserve fund grants, and the water project loans. The projects that we fund through the water plan grants support the implementation of the Colorado Water Plan. I mentioned this earlier, but the water plan is CWCB's guiding policy document that sets the vision for our state's water future. There are partner actions listed in the water plan that offer examples of the types of projects that CWCB helps support. So the projects that we fund fall into these 5 categories, and preference is given to projects that are multi-benefit, multi-purpose, and have multiple stakeholders. Our water supply reserve fund grants assist water users in our state in addressing their critical water supply issues. What's unique about this program is that requests for WSRF grants must be approved first by one of the local 9 basin roundtables, which are pictured on the screen, before submitting their application before the board. So for those who aren't familiar with the 9 basin roundtables, they are a body of local water leaders and experts, and these groups were created by legislation to work with the CWCB to provide that grassroots perspective and input on local water issues. We also have our loans. They're low interest loans made for the design, construction, or rehabilitation of existing water storage and delivery. The image on the screen is a photo of the construction of the Arkansas Valley Conduit, which was partially funded through a CWCB loan. And when it's done, it will provide drinking water to tens of thousands of people in the Arkansas Valley. I've listed just a few additional funding programs that we have. I'd encourage you to go to our website to learn more about these. But for the sake of time, I'm just going to move on to our resources. So these are just a few of our climate resources that we have. First, the Wildfire Ready Watersheds program, which has 3 main focuses. The first, they created a statewide susceptibility analysis that investigates the susceptibility of life, safety, infrastructure, and water supplies to post-wildfire impacts, like sedimentation and flooding and more. The second thing about this program is they collaborate with communities to create local wildfire-ready watershed action plans, and they also have funds to support the implementation of those plans. Next, we have the Climate Change in Colorado report, which came out last year, and you can find a copy at your table. This report really examines the climate and hydrologic trends that we're seeing in our state, along with the climate and hydrologic projections for our future. And it does a really good job of laying out the state of the physical science of climate change, in our state in a very like digestible way. While the forthcoming climate impacts report, which again we're working on now, examines how these climate trends and projections are impacting communities in our state by looking at the climate risk that the communities face. Specifically, we're looking at how communities might be exposed to climate hazards, how they might be vulnerable to adapting to these hazards, and what strategies and actions have communities already taken to adapt to our changing climate and water future. So the activity that we will do for the rest of our time together will really help the last piece that I just mentioned, the adaptation strategies and actions that we can or should be taking to adapt to our changing climate. So with that, I will open it up for questions for the last 4 agencies, if you guys want to step up here. So yeah, I'll just open it up to any questions from the group.
Question for Angela. I noticed on your map of the groups around the state that Pueblo County is not included in that. What sorts of stakeholders come together to get something like that started in a particular location?
That's a great question. It varies a lot depending on where you are in the state. So there's no sort of wrong answer, I don't think. In some communities, the RPIs are more engaged with their local government entities. You know, maybe there are the municipal or county planners involved, et cetera. In other places, it might be sort of local wildlife advocates who are then partnering with their local recreation advocates, say a mountain bike association or something like that, to try and resolve maybe some tensions that they have around, you know, competing priorities. So it's kind of choose your own adventure, and I'm happy to connect you with the folks who lead the effort.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask Angela a question too. So you mentioned the potential for heat waves to lead to more visitation and stress on some of our high elevation parks. I'm curious if you are tracking that with any sort of data now to see if that's something that is already happening.
That's a great question. I wish we were. I think one of our challenges is that CPW, at least at our state parks, we haven't necessarily had consistent visitation reporting done over time. Different parks have used different methods, so we can't robustly analyze that data. We are though looking to improve that data through things like cell phone data tracking that you can do to really gauge amount of users, and then you can answer lots of interesting questions. So it's definitely something we're thinking a lot about. And yeah, we'll see.
This wasn't a question someone asked, but I did have a colleague reach out to me and say, can you promote my program? So I'm going to do that. So I talked about, I'm in the Department of Local Affairs. We also have a community development office and someone named Scott Williamson who actually works on the land use and water nexus. So very relevant to the water people here today. But yeah, if you go to the DOLA website, you can find out more. We support communities in land use and water planning. We work with partners like the Sonoran Institute on things like the Water Wise and the Growing Water Smart Communities program, and a number of other technical assistance. So thanks.
Well, that's the same question as before, for the 4 people up here versus before. How do changes at the federal level affect, or how are you thinking about your missions and programs?
The 2 grant programs that I presented on are funded through state tax programs, the step tax and the sports betting tax actually funds our water plan grant program. So those are not impacted by federal changes. They're just impacted by volatility of those 2 sectors.
I'll just add kind of what was said before, we're continuing the work. The language may just be changing. So, but the vision, the work, the mission, it really stays the same. It's not, we're not shifting gears in that regard necessarily.
The Climate Resilience Challenge and Energy and Mineral Impact Assistance Fund program I mentioned is state funded. That funding actually comes from severance tax from largely mining companies, oil and gas. And so as we reduce, or if we don't reduce oil and gas mining, we will also reduce the tax that funds those programs, which really helps local governments in a big way. They really rely on this funding pot. So while that's not federally impacted, since it is a state tax, federal decisions on mining does influence that revenue stream. And I will also say we have a microgrids program that supports things like resiliency hubs and ensuring that there are spaces that can keep their lights on in times of power outages. That funding is both state and significantly federal, but we are excited that our federal program officers in the Department of Energy have told us that we can continue to expect those funds. You know, I think there is a difference between resilience and climate resilience. And so again, the wording and framing of some of our work might change, but that work is still going to be going forward.
And I'll say too, the vast majority of Colorado Parks and Wildlife's grant programs are state funded. We're an enterprise agency, and so we don't anticipate significant impacts. We do have a couple programs with some federal contributions, so I think we're in a bit of wait and see mode.
Questions? We are gonna get into our break right now. So if there are any other lingering questions or you want to know more information about any of the state agency programs that we just heard about, feel free. I think we probably want to take a quick break, so 5-ish minutes, and then we'll make our way back here. So, thank you.